The President's Day holiday marks nearly 1 month into President Donald Trump's second term, during which expanding executive power has emerged as a top priority of his. For that and the other political headlines, we turn now to our Politics Monday duo. That's Amy Walter of the Cook Political Report with Amy Walter and Tamara Keith of NPR. It's great to see you both.
Good to see you.
So, Amy, President Trump's tweet over the weekend, "He who saves his country does not violate any law." This wasn't some one-off statement by President Trump. It was emphasized by the White House's Twitter account, X account, making clear that this is now the official position of the administration. Words that run counter to the way our system works, words that run counter to what our founders intended. What questions does this raise for you?
Well, it definitely raises questions on what guardrails are going to be standing when the president actually does something that is not okay, that is actually illegal. And now we know much of the pushback is coming in the form of lawsuits. We have a ways to go before those make themselves clear. Obviously, one going to the Supreme Court more quickly. But I think at the end of the day, that looks like the most significant guardrail. The question about whether members of his own party are going to step up, clearly that hasn't happened yet. And I think the story that you ran before this with the farmers, it really, the pipeline from individuals to their members of Congress is more important right now than ever. That it has to come from members, not that they're getting pressure just from the White House, but that they're getting pressure from people at home who say, these things are actually impacting us. This is having an impact on our communities. Those calls coming in, that pressure is the only other, besides the court's guardrail, that I can think of right now.
And Tam, weigh in, because you cover this White House, obviously, and it's worth exploring and reiterating how we got here and why Donald Trump enjoys such latitude among elected Republicans.
Right. So he really rose from the ashes. He is a phoenix who rose from the ashes, and he survived 2 impeachments, he survived an assassination, and he survived numerous criminal prosecutions that didn't ultimately go anywhere except in one case, and that one is the sentencing was essentially put on hold. So he comes in also with the Supreme Court, a Supreme Court with a conservative supermajority that he is credited with putting there, that has a more expansive view of presidential power than past courts. And President Trump and his administration in Trump 2.0 has a significantly more expansive view of executive power than they did the first time around. If the theme of the first Trump administration was that Trump was pushing up against norms, this time he's pushing up against laws and the Constitution. Like changing the 14th Amendment or saying you could just use an executive order to do away with birthright citizenship. That is a dramatic escalation of some of the things that Trump did the first time around.
Mm-hmm. He clearly feels emboldened.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, to Tam's point, it's not just that Republicans have seen this president survive things that none of them in their political lifetimes they could have imagined being able to survive. But he outperformed so many of them in this last election that they are thinking to themselves, well, if he's actually more popular in my district than I am, he makes me question whether my political instincts are incorrect. Let's go with where he is. And as I said, the only way that he believes that he does not have a mandate would be that either support for him among his own party starts to crater, support among the public gets much lower. Right now, we're not at that point. Not even close to it.
Meantime, the Trump White House has indefinitely banned the Associated Press from the Oval Office and Air Force One for refusing to accept President Trump's renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. The AP makes the point that other countries don't recognize this change. The Associated Press has customers around the world, so it still uses the term Gulf of Mexico. Tam, I want to draw on your experience as the former president of the White House Correspondents Association, because the Associated Press is so foundational to White House coverage. Unwrap that for us and give us a sense of the implications here.
Yeah, the Associated Press is at the core of the pool. That is the group of reporters who have been following the president around wherever the president goes, going back to FDR. And the White House, by going after AP for an editorial choice, is going directly at the the First Amendment. It is going directly at the freedom of the press. And it is not coincidental that they are going after AP. AP is extremely influential. They're also kind of straight down the line. They are not a partisan news outlet in any way. They do have the AP Style Guide, which is used as a basis for news organizations all over the country and all over the world, to determine which words to capitalize and whether to call it the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America. In the case of AP, they're saying Gulf of Mexico, but President Trump changed it to the Gulf of America for Americans.
Amy?
Yeah, and I think this is such an important point that, Tam, basically outlining what it is the AP does. I don't think most people, even very well-informed people, understand this role. What they may be hearing is somebody from some news organization can't get into the White House briefing room. So what? There are 500 of them in there. Why does that matter? You can get in fights with individual news outlets all the time. This is meant to send definitely a message. And we've already seen a number of news organizations who Trump has gone after legally decide to settle or to give over in the case of CBS, the footage. So it goes back to your point. He's getting everything that he wants. Why would he do something different?
And there are viewers who will ask the question, why doesn't the press band together? Why don't they boycott press availabilities and really stick it to this White House and show them that the freedom of the press matters?
And maybe that could still happen. But right now, if the press corps were to do that, the White House would say, thank you very much. We have people from Mike Lindell's network and from OAN and from other sort of web-based social media influencers. We've got 10,000 people who want in. Fill the Oval, and then the questions being asked will not be the tough questions that the American people deserve.
And this is a fight that this White House would want, to paint the press as opponents rather than the neutral observers that we are and that we're supposed to be.
They want this fight, and they want the chilling effect that it could have on the press corps broadly.
Tamara, Keith, and Amy Walter, thanks as always.
You're welcome.
Thanks.